Many religions seek to address the problem that many people face here: individuated consciousness. It's a cruel state. It's a separation from God. How to resolve that? Well, Christians take just about the easiest route out of that, all but the Gnostic, which is to say that a man who is imbued with divine power came and sacrificed himself so that our sins would be forgiven and we could be saved. As long as we believe, as long as we have faith in him, we will be saved. It's a great system if you want it to be easy for people to practice religion. It's a very simple system. Universal. Intended to be universal. Gnostic Christianity puts the responsibility in your hands. Christ consciousness is something that you are supposed to realize. That's harder. And not as many people could do it successfully. Not as many people would get the benefit of Christianity that way. So I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing to have, an incomplete account of things for the sake of simplicity. Some people like simplicity. So it's like on YouTube, you could watch physics lectures from physicists, or you could watch someone who talks about physics and does little cartoons animating it, or you could watch, Science Channel documentaries about the stuff. We need less detail, more big picture as we go down the spectrum of people educated about a certain thing. Now, granted, consciousness is one of the most fundamental things, so it's, hard for me to understand why people wouldn't want to put the time in. But they don't. It's just a value issue. I'm convinced that if someone sets their mind to something and practices, they can achieve whatever success they want, because it's about training behavior. And it's not so hard. You just have to give yourself a chance. Consciousness, thinking about religious issues, spirituality, it's hard to see an immediate payoff, but it's the whole way that your existence is described by your thought. Your thought is your existence. So if you change the character of your thought, you change your reality. But that's not the way most people go for it. They go the materialist direction. And I guess that's why Christianity takes the form that it does, because we tend towards materialism. So we want to believe that, yes, literal son of the Father, and it's the material death that saves the immaterial soul. There's a gap there for me. Buddhists are a little, more pessimistic, I suppose. And it's not about being saved so that you will be eligible for the greater thing after. It's basically saying, this is, what we've been going through, that's all it could really ever be. And it's suffering. So we try to leave that alone. And as we do it, we improve the world as we renounce involvement. We provide a good example. We show other people the way. But ultimately, it's about saying, this is all I need. I've had enough of this, time to return to the source. And that's a noble instinct to have, very advanced. I'm not sure that I share the sentiment, though, because this seems fun to me. It doesn't seem like suffering. It seems that suffering is part of it, but hey, I'm having a great time, so why would I want to stop? Because other people aren't having a great time? Yeah, I suppose. But shouldn't we worry about improving their condition rather than using it as a justification to turn away from reality, turn away from life, renounce? I think we are our thoughts and we are our experiences of reality. And we have to look at our experience. And part of our experience is the hopes and expectations and all the human emotions that go into it. You know, Taoism's nice. Again, very noble. But I feel like any system that doesn't encourage, and I know there's a priesthood, that's the issue. There's people who can take it all the way and change their consciousness utterly, and then there's the people who like to reflect on the revelation, and I guess that's true of Taoism too. That's why poetry. But these people have different conceptions of what it means to save the soul. And I don't know, what is the atheist's soteriological perspective? Atheists evangelize. They try to save. But they save from the ignorance of idealism. And it's about improving this life in terms of our material wealth, basically. I mean, that's what people equate with happiness today, so that's what it's about. It's about science. It's about improving things here. Improving things. What about consciousness? And I know that's supposed to be part of it. That's psychology. But look at what psychology does. It drugs people. That's not development. We've had that for a long time. A society not based around drugging the people who don't have the religious insight, you know, really saving them. I mean, that's how it is. Egypt, the slaves drunk a form of beer that was also basically dinner. Perfect slave food. You know. That's the easy way of saving people. Make it easier for them as they basically just spend their time here, which is inevitably going to be suffering. Now, it is a changing of the mind. It's sort of a correcting of what was, and then, you know, developing social structures and religions and icons that help people bear it is very merciful. Although, if they didn't do that, then they couldn't retain their slave populations. So I don't see it as that altruistic. So we drug people. That's science's answer to consciousness. I mean, there's always somebody in the West. I mean, with the West, that's the thing about science. What we consider science, social science, all the different sciences. They might as well be Greek arts because people are doing very different things. It's creative more than it is, you know, discovering something. It's a model that we uncover. It's not the thing. The thing cannot be named. So we're building models and performing functions based on those models. And that does us a lot of good when those models approximate the behavior of the underlying thing. But however we choose to do that, well, I mean, there are infinite ways of doing it. different maths expressing the same thing. We have science. In materialism, that's enough, because it's about building the models that improve the function. It's about function. It's about something done here. Now, the only problem with that is that it rules out the possibility of a significance to your death. If it's all about what we're doing here, then we're not thinking about what might be at the end of it. Atheism is comforting because it tells us there is nothing. There's no consequence for your life here, however you choose to live it. So enjoy it. That's the implication. And that might be mistaken. We don't know. The atheist would like to believe, because it saves them from guilt and responsibility. But we don't know. Well, I mean, I guess this is where I mention why I think it might be that after death is very important. It's a longer span of time. Well, here's the deal. We have individuated consciousness. We believe that we are objects, and it's easy to imagine that an object could perish, because we see objects perish all the time. But we're not the object. We are something in between ourselves and our environment. And when we, the object, ceases, the environment persists, and it was us as we were living here. We just chose to acknowledge it or not. Right? So the greater self, the self that you're involved in, persists. So it's about developing reality. Because you are going to come again. It's the karmic wheel. It may not be you in memory. It may not be you in the sense that there's an eternal soul that passes from body to body. But it is all you anyway. And to imagine that you're not experiencing your life based on your own fault, because you are reality. You're not a thing. You know, things are the way that humans think of the world. The reality is that you come from the source. You've been developing with it. And the world will continue to develop, partly under your influence, because you are a part of it. You are part God. So we ignore that godly responsibility we have to control our own fate as the universe, or we ignore it. You know, if it's about individual interest as individual animals, then yeah, death is the end. Don't worry about what comes after. But if you're worried about the fate of the spirit that you've been engaged in, at least partly, then you do bear the responsibility. So soteriology then becomes not saving the self, or saving, what happens to the individual soul. It becomes save the greater self, change the greater self. I mean, people don't think individually. They think with the thoughts of other people, mostly. Whose thoughts are you using? And then what synthesis did you develop from it? Recombining the same elementary ideas over and over and over to produce quite a lot of complexity, very useful complexity. This is the danger of tyranny. It's that the sociopaths who have come to power will arrange affairs here on Earth so that it is their genetic and mimetic legacy which lives on. And it is they who control the greater self. And you are, well, I guess, drawn away from the wheel. See, this is the danger of Christianity for me, and the danger of Buddhism. It gives the wheel over to the kind of people who shouldn't be responsible for the wheel. The kind of person who can be responsible for world regeneration has to be responsible for their own regeneration, not their own salvation from suffering, from sin. It has to be a productive thing. And Christianity can be productive. It can engender productivity. I think people do experience Christ consciousness, and it changes you because, they're getting the intended message. Be Christ-like. Now, people who interpret that as morality, that's, one thing. And then there are people who recognize what that implies internally. I mean, you could go the sort of cheap route of saying that this is how you'd explain it to a kid, I guess. Like, God holds responsible even for your thoughts, so change your thoughts. And this is a way, it's really, underhanded. It works, though, of getting people to think in a way that is consistent with the development of an access to the greater consciousness. Creative geniuses often describe the experience of creation as a letting flow through. So being receptive to that, thinking of yourself as a conduit and a part of a greater world. If that's how we conceived of ourselves, then perhaps greater cooperation could occur, and the whole world would be, better for the next generation. Now, there's no consensus, Every jackass has his opinion. But what does it mean to save the world? What is the world that we want? See, this is the thing. We need to get over this world being literally Earth, the world. The world is bigger than Earth. And we have to think about saving the greater thing in the long run. Thinking long term is how you get things done from the start. If you think about what you can do in one lifetime, that's going to restrict the kinds of ends that you can achieve. The Rothschilds didn't control the banking industry overnight. Patience. Planning. What does it require? Thinking about that. Who is thinking about nationalism in terms of, space exploration? I don't know. Maybe we should be. Because it's not about securing the homeland here on Earth. Earth is probably fucked, and probably pretty soon. So if we're interested in, saving white people, as a lot of people in these circles care about, then provide a home for white people that is not dependent on what's been going on here. We understand the technology of life pretty well. We can use it. Science is not about building models to describe. It's about building models to use. So now that we've modeled ecosystems, we can contain ecosystems. We don't need a planet that is habitable for life. We just need what we need. And we can do that with current technology. It just hasn't been done because no country is interested in that for some reason. It would be too great an expense. Because countries already have their homeland. This is not something that can be accomplished overnight. but it's something to begin thinking about, begin deciding what the right kinds of social structures would be to develop here in order to attain that higher goal that might actually be worth something. This is not about Earth. This is about something bigger than that. Much bigger. The fate of, well, what happens after World War III, that's going to be important. And the run-up to this next time in Earth's history is very important. And we are responsible for it. We're the people given responsibility for this section of history. That's crazy. Do you know what this implies? If humanity escapes and colonizes the galaxy, that'll be hundreds of thousands of years of future humans. Maybe millions of years of future humans that will be descended from the people who left, not the people who stayed. And what political structure brought them there? How are they going to organize themselves? If we're not thinking of space politics now, then we're not going to do very well once we're in space. And if we're not thinking about representing the people in their interests in getting their genes passed on, then we should make sure that space is not monopolized by government. Now, there are efforts being made. There are always efforts being made. But if you are not making an effort, then it won't happen. This is also something, soteriology. It is, I believe, and I don't know why. This is, I have to grant, really an unwarranted claim. But I have a suspicion. Okay, so I buy into the many worlds interpretation. It resonates with, well, Hindu cosmology, with all sorts of systems. And it just provides a better explanation of wave function collapse. How does the collapse occur? It's a mystery, unless you say that no, this moment is a relativistic framing of this reality that is localized because of our observation. It's our being here which provides us that. And without that, it's everything that it could be. And it's not our observation that makes it special. It's our observation that sees one aspect only of the greater reality. Which is, well, it goes on. So, many worlds interpretation. That sets you more or less in a solipsism, unfortunately, if you think about it. Because every decision you make the other one anyway. These branching timelines occur. Now, for you, the future is your future. The future brought about by your actions. For you. But for the world, you can't save the world. The world is everything already. You can't save it. The only thing you're really saving in saving the world is saving yourself. So, ultimately, it's about individual salvation. Everything that we're doing here. But that's because we are an observer of the thing. And it's up to us to see its reality or not. It's up to us to have a connection with Buddha consciousness, Christ consciousness, to experience, I don't know. We see it or we don't. And if we see it, then we have a chance of changing the world. And that's our world. And our world is the only world for us. So, if you don't act to save the world, then the world won't be saved. Not for you. This is a belief that I have. Partly because of the solipsism implied by the many worlds. It's your responsibility. Because it's your dream. It's no one else's. And your dream is cohabitated by everyone that you meet, and they are important. It's not like they become unreal. they're here too for the same moment. But whatever you do to them, you know, they'll already be experiencing the other realities where you didn't. So it's not about what you do to them. It's about how you develop relationships with them, how you help the greater thing thrive. Because that's your happiness. Your happiness is your connection to all of reality, because you are an observation of the universe, not of a body. You're not an observation of a body. You're not an individual. You're a participation in a greater thing. And you take responsibility for that because it's your observation. This is why idealism is helpful in saving people. It's about getting into the realm, the other realm, here, and then using it. The creatures that do, well, those are humans. And look at what we accomplish. So if that's our special advantage, we should all be using it. And we should be thinking about saving other people so that they also get it. Because that's our reality. And we have an obligation, if we care about ourselves, to do that. This is the way that I see it. Now, of course, as I said, I'm just some jackass on the internet. You know, what do I know? But, you know, you have to think about soteriology even if you don't agree with any of the ones discussed. You know, you have to consider, what am I setting myself up for? Not just in the long term of your own life, which, yeah, that's important. And finding morality in some sense is a good thing if you're looking to save yourself. But we should also start really thinking about modern physics and what that implies about our future. You know, if there is the many worlds, there's always another place to go. It will always be experienced, and you don't experience your non-experience. So the reality wherein you just cease is already hard to think about, hard to imagine, and it seems like it wouldn't happen. Not for you, because you are experience. You're not non-experience. And there's plenty of experience where you're not experiencing that's left for you, no matter what. It's just a heaven or a hell. You improve your condition, or you make it worse. And my imagining is that the way you're doing things here, if you've improved your condition over your life, you're probably on the up, and that's fine. If you have gotten worse, examine yourself. And have you gotten worse in terms of your happiness, in terms of your well-being, mental health, consciousness? How has your experience of reality changed? Has it gotten worse? Examine yourself. Find a way to make it better. Anyway, I think it's probably a hard topic not to sound preachy on, but I don't intend to. I'm just sharing my opinion. Anyway, thanks for listening.